Assalamualaikum. I am Nayab and I'm your biology teacher. And we're going to start with the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most compassionate. So today we're going to do transport in mammals. It's the same chapter, but it's the second part of the first video I did. So this will be the last and second and the last part. And let's start this. Okay, so as we talked about the blood in the first lecture, now we're going to talk about the circulatory system of our body. So let's start. So as you can see, for transporting substances through the body cells, the blood moves through a system of blood vessels called the circulatory system. So blood so we talk about the blood's composition and all, but we also have to see how it gets transported in the whole body. So it is transported by blood vessels, and the blood vessels are connected to each other, and that's called the circulatory system. And the passage in which the blood moves in the blood vessel is called the circulatory system. So to flow the blood into the whole body, it has to be pumped by a muscular organ called the heart. So as you see, if we have to transport the blood into the whole body, then there has to be an organ or a tissue which has to exert the force on the blood so it can transport into the whole body, which the organ is called the heart, as shown on the diagram. It pumps the heart into the blood vessels which transport them to the body. If it wouldn't have been pumped, the blood wouldn't go to all parts of the body because it won't have force, so it won't go itself on the in the whole body. So we need an organ to pump the blood to make it go through the whole body. So the heart fills up when relaxes and pumps the blood filled up when contracts. So the heart beats, like it contracts and it relaxes, it contracts and it relaxes, and like there's a sequence to this. So when it fills of blood, it relaxes, and when it contracts, it it pumps the blood filled up in the blood vessels, which goes to the whole body. So this was a brief description of the circulatory system. Let's go to the blood vessels. So the blood vessels, arteries, first we're going to talk about the blood vessels called arteries. Arteries are the blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart. So arteries always carry blood away from the heart. They never carry blood towards the heart. So arteries are big vessels which carry blood away from the heart. Arteries divide into branches to form arterioles. So as you can see, like arteries are not small as cells or tissues, so they have to divide in arterioles to perform proper transportation of blood to the cells. So arteries divide into small vessels called the arterioles. Now the arterioles divide further into a very tiny fine vessels called capillaries. So now there are deep down sections in our body which can't be reached by the arterioles. So they divide further into tiny blood vessels called capillaries. As you can see in the picture, these are the capillaries, and they're very small. They're like 1 cell thick, so they can transfer the blood deep down in the tissues and cells. When the blood is transported and becomes deoxygenated, means that the blood doesn't have oxygen and food. It's not rich in food and oxygen. It has carbon dioxide and waste products in it. So that blood is called the deoxygenated blood. The capillaries unite to form. They unite to form the venules. So when it is deoxygenated, it has to go back to the heart to get oxygenated, to be rich in oxygen and food. So the capillaries then unite to form venules. Venules are small blood vessels which transfer the blood to the heart. So which later form big vessels called veins. So the venules further unite to form big vessels called veins carrying blood towards the heart. Now over here we read that arteries are the blood vessels which carry blood away from the heart, but veins carry blood towards the heart. They don't carry the blood away from the heart. And the venules are just like arterioles. Arterioles divide into capillaries, and then capillaries unite into venules. So yeah, these are the blood vessels: arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, and veins. So now we're going to read about detail about arteries and veins. So arteries have thick muscular walls. They have thick muscular walls which are elastic. They are also elastic that they can stretch out because they receive the blood directly from the heart, so they have to withstand the high pressure of the blood. So as we saw that the heart pumps the blood, so it has to pump it with force, so it goes to the whole body. So as the arteries which are directly connected to the heart, like they receive the blood which has a lot of force, so they have muscular walls to suffer and withstand the pressure, and they are elastic because if there's a lot of blood they can stretch out to allow the blood to pass through. So they have thick muscular walls. As the arteries which are very near to the heart, they have a lot, they have more thicker and muscular walls than the arteries which are not that nearer to heart. So because they have to withstand the high pressure which is exerted by the heart onto the blood. Some of the important arteries of the body are carotid, subclavian, hepatic, renal, and iliac arteries. These are some very important arteries of the blood called the carotid, subclavian, hepatic, renal, and iliac arteries. Now we read about arteries, we're going to do veins. The blood pressure in the veins is low, so the walls are not as thick as compared to the arteries. So as the veins carry the blood towards the heart, so there's not much pressure because the pressure has been slowed down when it was passing the arteries and capillaries. So it has been slowed down, and now it's not that much in the veins. So their walls are not that thick because they don't have to withstand the pressure like the arteries. Instead, veins have valves which prevent backward flow of blood. So as the vein is carrying the blood towards the heart, so it has to prevent the backward flow, because if the blood flows backward, the cycle will not be the same. So it has to carry the blood towards the heart. So there are walls present which prevent this from happening, that they prevent the backward flow of the blood into the previous blood vessels. Important veins of the body are the pulmonary, jugular, subclavian, iliac, and hepatic veins. These are some important veins called the pulmonary, jugular, subclavian, iliac, and hepatic veins, which are mainly important in the body. Now we're going to talk about the organ which pumps the blood, the heart. First, we're going to talk about the location of where the heart is even present in our body. The heart is located superior to the diaphragm and in the thoracic cavity between the lungs. So it is between our lungs, and the diaphragm is the ending where the lungs end. So it is superior, like it is upper than the diaphragm, and the lungs between them is like slightly to the left, not a lot to the left, but it's slightly to the left in the thoracic cavity. Anatomy. The heart has 4 chambers, like it has 4 rooms which receive blood, 2 atrium and 2 ventricles. There are atria and ventricles, 2 atrium and 2 ventricles. Then there are 4 valves, tricuspid, mitral, aortic, and pulmonary valves. These also prevent backward flow of blood, just like in veins, but they're present in the heart. Tricuspid, mitral, you can also call it bicuspid, aortic, and pulmonary. The heart. The heart is divided into 4 chambers called the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and the left ventricle. So as you can see in the heart diagram over here, you can see this is the right atrium over present in the right side. As you can see here, it is in the left, but if we do it in the human side, that would be the right side. So this is the right atrium and this is the right ventricle. So this is the left atrium and that's the left ventricle. So these are the four chambers: the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. Right atrium receives deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood is the blood which doesn't have oxygen, as I told you before. So it receives the deoxygenated blood by these veins called the superior and inferior vena cavas. So it receives deoxygenated blood by these. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood. Left atrium receives oxygenated blood. So the left atrium over here receives oxygenated blood. We're gonna see the process in detail, how it receives it, how it pumps it. So let's go to the next slide. Process of blood circulation in the heart. First, the heart receives deoxygenated blood from the superior and inferior vena cavas. So as the blood that is transported to the whole body and comes back to the heart, and the superior and inferior vena cava then transport it into the right atrium, this part of the heart. The deoxygenated blood goes to the right ventricle from the right atrium present beneath it when it contracts. So when the upper part of the heart contracts, the deoxygenated blood goes into the right ventricle by this valve present, the tricuspid valve, as we learned in the previous slide that there is a tricuspid valve. So by this valve, it opens and the deoxygenated blood goes into the right ventricle and then it closes. So the blood doesn't go back in the right atrium. From there, the blood enters the pulmonary artery by the pulmonary valve and goes to lungs. So the blood over there, this is the pulmonary artery or the pulmonary arch. So from here, the blood goes into from the right ventricle, it goes into the pulmonary artery by the pulmonary valve. As you can see, this has labeled over here pulmonary valve. So it opens and the deoxygenated blood goes into the pulmonary artery by the pulmonary valve, and then the pulmonary artery then takes it to the lungs. The exchange of gases happens, the blood becomes oxygenated. So lungs are present, as we saw that the heart is present in the between the lungs. So the lungs are present at the right and the left side of the heart. So first, what happens is that the pulmonary artery takes the deoxygenated blood into the lungs, and there, as we breathe, so the lungs have oxygen in them. So the carbon dioxide present in the blood is diffused into the lungs, and the oxygen in the lungs diffuses into the blood. And then the blood becomes rich in oxygen and it is called oxygenated blood. So after the exchange, the oxygenated blood is brought back to the heart and the left atrium. So it is when the exchange of gases happen, it is brought back to the right atrium after the exchange. By the mitral wall, the blood flows into the left ventricle. So there's a wall present between the left atrium and the left ventricle called the mitral wall, which allows the oxygenated blood to pass through. The left ventricle has thick cardiomuscular walls which allow it to pump the blood vigorously. So as the left ventricle has to pump the blood, it has to pump it with force. So it has like a lot muscular walls which allow it to pump the blood strongly, vigorously, so it goes into the whole body. Compared to the right side, like the right ventricle of the heart, the left ventricle has a lot thicker cardiomuscular walls which allow to pump the blood vigorously. The left ventricle pumps the blood into aorta. Aorta is the largest artery by the artery. And what happens is that after the left ventricle receives the blood, it pumps the blood into the aorta, which is present like right upper in the part of the heart. So it pumps the blood into the aorta by the aortic valve. Aorta is the largest artery, which the aorta transfers the blood into the whole body. So the aorta is the largest artery, which divides into many arteries, which transport the blood to the whole body. So this was the real function of the blood in here, like function of the heart, that how it transferred blood to the whole body. So the blood pressure and the pulse. The blood pressure is the pressure of the circulating blood exerted on the blood vessels. So as you can see that when the blood is forced, like it has pressure on it, though it is pressurized to go into the arteries. So the pressure it exerts into the arteries while going into like not just arteries in the whole blood vessels. So when it's going, like it's transporting, so the blood which is exerted by the force which is exerted by the blood into the blood vessels is called the blood pressure, the pressure of the blood which is being exerted on the blood vessels. The pressure which is exerted by the contraction of the ventricles of the heart is called systolic pressure. So when the ventricles contract and they pump the blood out of the heart, that pressure, the pressure with which it pumps the blood out of the heart, is called the systolic pressure. As you can see in this diagram over here, this is the ventricles are contracting, and the pressure which is produced by the pumping of the heart is called a systolic pressure. The pressure which is exerted by a relaxation of ventricles is called a diastolic pressure. So over here you can see they also did diastole. So over here the blood is filling up in the heart, like the blood is filling up in the heart. So there's less pressure obviously. So that pressure when the ventricles are relaxed is called the diastolic pressure. The pressure is the pulse is the rhythmical beating of the arteries caused by the contraction of the heart. So as the heart beats, the blood also goes into the arteries or arteries. So like the arteries also contract and relax like the heart. So that is the pulse when the arteries beat when they have the blood in it. So we can also feel the pulse in the ourselves when we put our finger on our fist, because the arteries are close to the skin over there. We can even feel a beat of the pulse over there. We can feel the beat of the pulse of the arteries which are closer to the skin, which is also present in our fist. So the pulse is the beating of the basically is the beating of the arteries when the heart relaxes or contracts. Thank you guys. If you found this lecture helpful, please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and please share it with your friends so everyone can see my videos. Thank you for your cooperation.